This is part 2 of My Father of Sambo series, where we explore the life of a man widely credited as the father of one of the most brutal and effective submission arts ever conceived. In today's video, Vasili Oshchepkov, Father of Sambo, Part 2. We ended Part 1 with Vasili's graduations in 1913, but we'll go back 1 year to cover some relevant occurrences. In 1912, Vasili's guardian, Emilian Vladyko, officially resigned from this position. It's speculated he also stopped sending him money from the rental of his properties in Sakhalin. This was a time when the Russian military provided scholarships to some seminarians they later used as translators, counterintelligence agents, and spies. According to the author, in 1912, Vasili stopped paying for his stay in Tokyo and started living on an allowance from the Russian military. As we know, 1913 was the year Vasili graduated from both the seminary and the Kodokan. He was 5'10", approximately 175 pounds, and possessed great physical strength. According to Nina Rozanova, a woman who met him, he was stunningly charming, intelligent, very cultured, and a well-mannered man. 1914 was a very busy year for the young judo black belt, who was sent for military service in Russia and the headquarters of the Amur military district in Khabarovsk, and then to Vladivostok to serve as a translator at the intelligence department of that district. It was in Vladivostok where Vasili founded his first judo club, and technically the first one in Russia. Even though Ryohei Uchida, a Japanese intelligence agent and practitioner of several martial arts that included kendo and jiu-jitsu, founded in the same city the Black Dragon River Society in 1896. No Russians were allowed in his dojo. Vasili's judo club was located at the Korbalnaya embankment. Here, we see him with his students, the first judokas of Vladivostok. In Vasili's own words, the group consisted of approximately 50 people, mostly young students. The Japanese who lived there also came to train. The first mention of the club in a media outlet dates to 1915. The sports magazine Hercules published Mr. Oshchepkov, a specialist of the Japanese wrestling jiu-jitsu, who is staying in the city, was invited as a teacher by the board of the local sports society. Interest in this popular Japanese style of fighting is growing among athletes. On July 4th, 1917, the newspaper Far Outskirts reported a very interesting jiu-jitsu competition took place at the Vladivostok Sports Society, where a Japanese team from the commercial school of the city of Otaru, led by their teacher, Mr. Hidetoshi Tomabechi, met the local team led by V.S. Oshchepkov, with the personal participation of Oshchepkov himself, who attracted a lot of public. Some self-defense techniques were demonstrated by Mr. Oshchepkov, who defended attacks from different angles. This event has historic significance, as it's possibly the first international team tournament in the sport of judo. During this period, Vasili was periodically sent to Japan. During one of these work trips, he visited the Kodokan and passed the exam for his second-degree black belt on October 4th, 1917. Only 3 weeks before the Great October Socialist Revolution led by the Bolshevik Party of Vladimir Lenin. The communist takeover meant Vasili's service for the intelligence department was terminated. He and many military and police personnel suddenly found themselves without a livelihood. It was a period of intense political turmoil and almost complete anarchy in Vladivostok. On December 31st, 1917, Japanese, British, and American cruisers uninvitedly entered the Golden Horn Bay in Vladivostok, looking to preserve their power in the Far East. This didn't interrupt Vasili's martial work, as stated in a Japanese newspaper published in Vladivostok on the same date of the first Red Army Day, February 23, 1918. Judo and boxing competitions will be held under the auspice of the Sports Society, where locals will meet brave athletes from Japanese and British warships. Kanji Kato, admiral of one of the Japanese ships and former judoka, wrote in his diary, "I attended the event at the Sports Society. Vasili is great. He forced me to demonstrate some judo techniques with him." Vasili remained in the city, where he was aware of the echoes of upcoming Japanese invasions. Meanwhile, he found different ways to subsist. He taught Japanese, worked in a translation office, and possibly even started selling shoes, as suggested by a permit request to import 60 pounds of shoes from Japan dated May 24, 1918. In 1919, Oshchepkov got a job in the Department of Military Communications of the Japanese Expeditionary Corps, possibly by the recommendation of a Japanese officer. His reasons for joining this branch of the Japanese army are still unclear. A source claims he was approached by the Bolshevik intelligence in 1919. Another says 1921. So, it's not documented whether working for the Japanese was a legit decision, later seen by the Bolsheviks as an opportunity, or simply a premeditated intelligence move. As we discussed in Part 1, at this point, Japan was still in control of the southern part of the island of Sakhalin. Russia controlled the north, where Vasili was born. However, the Japanese were closely monitoring the situation and waiting for the right moment to seize the north of the island. When they perceived instability in the young Soviet power, they immediately made their move. On April 22, 1920, the Japanese occupied northern Sakhalin, as 2,000 Japanese soldiers arrived in Alexandrovsk, where young Vasili first went to school. Following the transfer of power in northern Sakhalin into the hands of the Japanese military, the arrests and killings of supporters of the Soviets followed. Vasili's political and religious views didn't align with those of the communists, but he viewed the Japanese Empire as a direct threat to Russia. Being a self-declared patriot, he decided to fight for his country. According to an official document, Oshchepkov became an agent of the intelligence department of the 5th Red Banner Army, under the pseudonym DD, in December 1921. Among his fellow intelligence officers were several former seminarians. One of them, his old childhood friend, Trofim Yurkevich, now Agent R. In a declassified document titled Agent Subscription, Vasili Oshchepkov signs, agreeing to several conditions that include the following: effectively and efficiently executing all duties assigned to him, not giving away information regarding to fellow employees, intelligence agents, etc., even under threat of death, recognizing only the Soviet government working to strengthen the blood of the working revolutionary people, acknowledging that failure to comply would result in the persecution of his family in the same capacity they do to their enemies' families. Finally, demanding the death sentence for himself if he were to disclose any information that could negatively affect the Soviet government. Between the second half of 1921 and 1922, Vasili moved back to his hometown in the north of the Sakhalin Island, this time as a spy. This is the end of Part 2 of this Grappling Legends bio. Stay tuned for Part 3, where we will uncover Oshchepkov's career as a spy, his catch wrestling influence, and the birth of Sambo.
Don't forget to check out the new Brazilian Luta Livre t-shirt from Gotch Fightwear. The links are in the description or visit gotchfightwear.com.
This video was produced by Didos and the World Submission Wrestling Federation. Join the World Submission Wrestling Federation. Visit our official website at submissionwrestlingarts.com.